State Human Services Director Lloyd Rader surprised the committee members this morning when he disclosed the contents of a letter received from the federal government last week. The letter discussed state compliance to new procedures for reimbursement for federally assisted programs. Rader said compliance would mean changing a lot of Oklahoma laws dealing with deficit spending, but committee members felt the change could be handled more easily.
Well, I can certainly understand Mr. Rader and his concern. To me, there were a lot of questions, but it's simply a matter of financing federal programs with state revenue for a certain period of time. And so that naturally is we're going to have to consider some upfront money for that purpose, or we're going to be in a dilemma of possibly having some deficit balances. And it's just that simple.
Bank robberies in Oklahoma are simply becoming too common, and the robbers are getting away with thousands of dollars, all done in broad daylight in just a matter of a few minutes. In Oklahoma, for the entire year of 1980, there were only 7 bank robberies. Last year, the number jumped to 15. In only 1 month into 1982, there have been a half a dozen bank robberies. The Oklahoma Bankers Association, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office have decided to do something about the problem that's worked in at least one other state. In a joint news conference today, the Bankers Association announced it will pay up to $2,000 per robbery for information leading to the arrest of an Oklahoma bank robbery suspect. The FBI is sure the reward program will make a difference in catching bank robbers.
I know most people are not afraid to come forward to furnish information about a crime they have witnessed. People who care for the well-being and safety of their fellow citizens. I'm confident that this program is going to be effective and that we will be able to reduce the number of bank robberies that have been occurring of late here in Oklahoma.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says it will try to put robbers behind bars for up to 35 years if convicted. An important footnote, employees of Oklahoma banks and their immediate family are not eligible for reward money. And the reward fund only applies to banks and not savings and loans. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
We news people have a tendency to report what you might call the sober side of the news. Now take this big snow in northern Oklahoma, for example. We've told you the roads are slick, the snow is deep, and the temperature is frigid. We've told you the sunny Sunbelt has surely been soaked by soggy snow. And if you've refused to believe us, we've proven our point with pictures. This Oklahoma winter is terrible. Wait a minute, what's this? Appears to be something we've missed. People having fun in the snow. These are just kids, but don't they understand it's cold, wet, miserable out here? If they keep having fun, they'll wreck this news story. Maybe they work for one of the other channels.
I love it.
How come?
You can play in it and have a lot of fun, build snowman, have a snowball fight.
Yeah, lots of fun.
A little cold for this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cold. More fun than it is freezing though.
What do you think about the snow?
I like it.
How come?
'Cause you could go sledding a whole bunch of stuff.
Huh, even the little guy has a wise crack. Oh well, maybe when these kids grow up a little bit, they'll learn to appreciate the seriousness of the news. I'm Larry Audis, Action 4, Enid.
Yeah, let's open it.
The longer we was up yonder, the more thick it got. After I got back halfway down the hallway, the flames were into the hallway, burning down the carpets. At which time we was getting people out of the residences and out on the street.
Department of Human Services workers sat down to some serious business today. They're compiling department abuse reports, which have been the subject of a series of articles by the Muskogee newspaper. Statements from students who say they were physically or sexually abused by department employees form the heart of the reports. They're supported by statements from the department's advocate defender and by personnel files. Human Services boss Lloyd Rader ordered the internal investigation so the department would be ready for an outside audit.
We feel certain, that there will be investigation, and I'm sure that any information here that's of a public nature will be made available to you. There's certain information here that is not public information, such as the identification of these children.
Department of Human Services staff members are also compiling evidence about student attacks on department employees. Though less widely publicized, the department claims assaults by students are common. The results of the internal investigation will be made public later this week. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 at the State Department of Human Services.
The prison crowding situation has been eased somewhat by court-approved double celling. Unfortunately, that hasn't solved the problem, and the Corrections Board is seeking permission to double cell more prisoners. Immediate and long-term solutions are on the burner, but these plans will take time to implement. and time is as short as the prisons are crowded. The department is expecting around 500 new bed spaces by the end of the year, but Director Larry Meacham says they will need legislative action to find a solution.
The piece of legislation that has the greatest amount of support by the governor and the leadership at this time is a McCune Bill 388 that would allow for mandatory community supervision. We don't know the exact impact of that bill at this time, but what it would do would be to allow the Department of Correction to supervise people in the community for the last 6 months, because we have about 58% of our offenders hitting the street without a job or place to stay or any kind of substantive supervision. And if a person is going to stay out of prison, that first 6 months is very critical.
Meacham says they will be in trouble if the McCune plan doesn't pass. He says he doesn't know what they will be able to do. What is clear is that a solution will need to be found, and found quickly, or the Corrections Department will be in serious trouble with the federal courts. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Senator Nickles came to the Oklahoma Children's Center to get what he calls the full story. Nickles says the Senate investigator sent to Oklahoma last week only conducted half an investigation. The investigator spoke with students who said they were abused in Oklahoma's juvenile institutions, but he failed to interview the workers accused of doing that abuse. Today, the senator questioned School Superintendent Wilbur Williams about the recent firing of 2 employees because of sex and drug abuse allegations.
You know, there was complaints that came up in Washington that specifically hit a couple of individuals, I won't mention their names, but that were very heavily involved in drugs. One of them was allegations were made that he was also connected possibly to the prostitution ring. Those 2 people have been terminated?
Yes, sir, they have.
When were they terminated?
They were terminated, effective to close the business on Monday, the 8th.
Just this past Monday?
Yes, sir.
And when did it come to your attention that possibly those individuals might have been up to drug dealing or any other things that would be less than desirable?
It came to my attention that something was wrong back when one of the employees took a polygraph, and he came back and told me, he said, "Mr. Williams, I believe I failed that."
Recent reports have suggested that some school employees allowed Taft students to harvest marijuana near the school last summer. Senator Nickles wanted to know if pot was plentiful on campus.
A lot of people were talking about all the drugs and stuff. Do you see a lot of marijuana floating around, or about what percentage of the kids, do you have any idea, would be, you know, using marijuana or cocaine or any other?
Well, I don't think very many of them would, no. You know, because, I don't know, you know. I don't have any right to say, because, you know, I don't know people who do it and who don't.
The senator will visit other state-run juvenile institutions this weekend. When the Senate subcommittee investigating Oklahoma's juvenile care system reconvenes in a few weeks, then Senator Nickles will be able to provide some testimony of his own. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the Oklahoma Children's Center in Taft.
It was your typical wedding. Lots of music, lots of lace, lots of people, and lots of ice. Richard Dixon and Sharon Drury said, "I do" before God and everybody tonight in the Myriad. There had to be a ring bearer, and who else but Winger, the Star's mascot. Winger the ringer in this case. Sharon wanted the nuptials at Center Ice because most of her friends declined her regular invitations, saying they would be at tonight's Stars Tulsa Oilers hockey game instead.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
And so another happy ending. Matrimonial bliss on ice, and the Stars were winning to boot. Tony Stizza, Action 4.
We received the information from Iran through to our sources that Khomeini had a heart attack last week. They rushed him with the staff of his doctors to Switzerland due to the lack of the equipment for the surgeries. And then also follow up through our sources in Switzerland, we received information that Saturday, 10 o'clock Saturday night, last Saturday night, he was dead in Switzerland in hospital at the local time, p.m., Saturday 10 o'clock, which about 7 hours we are ahead of them, so it would be around I believe the 5 o'clock Sunday morning, Sunday morning.
How reliable are your sources?
Our sources is very reliable because, as you know, we are anti-Khomeini's organization. We have the underground group organization in Iran, and we have also groups all over the world,
The original lawsuit was filed against the Welfare Department in January of 1978. Legal aid attorney Stephen Novick filed the class action suit on behalf of children housed in Oklahoma's juvenile care institutions. The original suit complained about the solitary confinement of kids in state-run facilities. It complained about lack of adequate educational and vocational training and a lack of access to legal help. Legal aid obtained frightening evidence of child abuse from the Welfare Department as the probe continued. A year and a half later, the legal aid attorneys amended the original complaint to include allegations of physical abuse of kids, the improper use of tranquilizers, excessive corporal punishment, and for the first time, they asked to have all non-delinquent children removed from state institutions. In the meantime, the Welfare Department set up a reporting system for child abuse complaints. Legal aid used many of those complaints to bolster their case. Early last year, legal aid attorneys asked a federal judge to close down the infamous Dodge House at the Helena State School for Boys. They claimed kids were kept in solitary confinement for weeks in Dodge House. The state voluntarily bulldozed the building a short time later. Attorneys for the kids also asked that the use of restraints such as handcuffs no longer be used in the institutions. Within a few months, the department issued a directive outlawing all but humane mental health restraints. Last summer, Welfare Department attorneys sat down with legal aid lawyers to hammer out a negotiated settlement to the suit. 5 months later, both sides agreed to a compromise. In their proposed settlement, the state agreed to shut down the Helena State School. It also agreed to remove from institutions runaways and other kids who haven't been convicted of crimes. But late last month, the state legislature threw a monkey wrench into the settlement when it asked the state attorney general to intervene. The attorney general must file a formal request for the state to withdraw from the case by tomorrow. Attorneys for both the Department of Human Services and legal aid object to the intervention. It'll be up to federal Judge Ralph Thompson to decide whether to approve the settlement as originally agreed upon, or perhaps to order a trial so the case can be decided before a jury. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Officers responded to a domestic call at 4105 Reeder. The girlfriend of 22-year-old Daryl Elmore told officers her boyfriend had beaten and cut her. When officers arrived on the scene, Elmore had allegedly assaulted 3 people and had barricaded himself inside his father's home with a rifle. Officers tried to coax him out of the house.
He came out of the door. Officer Joe Franks cautioned him to drop the rifle. Instead, he turned towards the officer with the rifle. Officer Franks fired 2 shots from his shotgun.
The suspect is in serious condition at Baptist Hospital. The officer has been routinely suspended. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
Because in a city where we spent literally billions of dollars building the finest medical facilities available, we've done very little for the terminally ill patient. As it stands now, most have only one choice. They have to die in a hospital. And there's a problem with that.
Our hospital system today is such that it's not geared to care for people who have terminal diseases.
Since A Time to Die aired nearly a year and a half ago, Linda Kavanaugh has worked towards establishing a hospice program in central Oklahoma. Collections came in, and collection canisters appeared in area stores. But in this neighborhood near Southwest 41st and Portland, a man has been soliciting door-to-door, using Linda Kavanaugh's name and saying he is with the hospice program.
Mother and I each gave him $1, and after I put my dollar in his container, I asked if he had a receipt to give me, and he said no, that he didn't have them with him. And of course then the bells rang, and so I decided to call then to see if he was for real.
A spokesman for the Hospice Association says the man probably was not collecting for them.
We feel that it may be a legitimate thing. You know, this guy may be going door to door for hospice, but we currently, the organization currently, is not doing that. The lady that I spoke with was very concerned that he was, you know, not a member of the hospice organization, which, as far as I know, he is not. And we do not go door to door, and we may never go door to door. What we usually do is do little canisters in the stores, or people mail in their donations. But I know of no one that we have okayed to go door to door.
Police are looking for a tall, slender white male in his early 20s who might still be collecting door to door. In the meantime, a legitimate collector from any charitable organization ought to carry proper identification. Check to see those papers if you want to make sure the money that you're donating is going where you want it to go. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Southwest Oklahoma City.
This is William Redbird. He died in the Clinton City Jail last December. The Indian male was arrested on a drunk charge, but an autopsy report shows he died of head injuries he received several days earlier.
What has disturbed
Indian leaders were outraged. They met with the city council and demanded that procedures be changed in dealing with alcoholics.
Filled out.
Today, Bernice Redshin announced that city officials have assured her that police officers would take a minimum of 8 hours training to recognize and deal with alcoholics.
I think that this is a very important thing that we're trying to get done, because it's not just for us, it's for the community of Clinton. And in order to get this going, we're going to all have to work together.
Although no charges have been filed against any police officer for wrongdoing, City Manager James Luckett said he welcomes citizen input.
If we were wrong at any time, we certainly don't approve of that, and we're just happy that the Indian community has joined together and brought some of their concerns to us.
The concerned citizens say they're satisfied with the council's actions so far, but they stress that the solution will be for all complaints to be brought to the attention of local leaders. Ben McCain, Action 4, Clinton.
Recent allegations of child abuse in department-run juvenile institutions sparked great interest in today's meeting. The room was packed with reporters, attorneys, and human services employees. Department boss Lloyd Rader took a few potshots at the Gannett News Service reporters whose stories have stung the agency.
I think you just got a case here of a couple of overly ambitious reporters. They got carried away. They're trying to write a story, and maybe Brown knows the boss, I don't know.
Also today, welfare officials revealed previously undisclosed information to counter some of the abuse allegations. One incident involved a girl who told a Senate investigator her wrists were scarred when she was handcuffed for an extended time at one institution. Rader says department records show the girl already had the scars when she was admitted to the state school.
Is there any other comment on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign. It's unanimous.
In other action, the Welfare Commission approved the out-of-court settlement of a lawsuit brought against the department. The commission had okayed the agreement last November, but the state attorney general was asked to have the stipulation nullified. Among other things, the attorney general says the November approval violated the state's open meeting law. The commission's attorney today said he was not convinced the revote was necessary, but he says today's action should take care of the situation. Oklahoma appeals courts in the past have said that subsequent events, such as ratifying actions or decisions previously made in violation of the state open meetings laws, will not cure the violations, will not breathe life into the prior illegal action. Federal Judge Ralph Thompson will hold a hearing Thursday afternoon to decide whether or not, in this case, the open meetings law was violated and whether the state attorney general has cause to enter this lawsuit. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Gonna die.
Henryetta, Oklahoma is going to be the target of a state investigation soon. Several residents in the town have asked for the probe to look into the actions of the Henryetta Police Department. Officers are being accused of beating and harassing people whom they arrest. A group calling itself the Henryetta Human Rights Association says it has eyewitness accounts of police brutality, and the association wants the FBI to become involved. One man told us what he has experienced and plans to tell the investigators.
Okay, well, I was back there in a cell and heard a screaming, and they were coming through the door. And I looked up and seen 3 cops with Ralph Van Meter. And they had his arms behind his back, twisting his arms, and the man was screaming. He was saying, "Oh God, oh God." And they were hurting the man and kind of jack-slapping him on the head with their hands, you know. And the old man, all he could do was about holler about it.
I welcome any investigation by the FBI, OSBI, grand jury of the citizens of Okmulgee County. I don't have anything to hide. I'm not ashamed of nothing. I think they only use whatever force is necessary to overcome the resistance by certain individuals. And today, I don't believe we're dealing with the same type of people we were with 20 years ago, because now they drink and pop pills and they act different.
This is a picture of William Stem. He says police recently beat him over his entire body, especially on his head. Stem was being arrested at the time for a misdemeanor. The association is mainly after the resignation of Police Chief Laramie, and there is a meeting planned for tonight to discuss a protest march.
There's lots of that going on. It's just, I would say it's probably dang near just about a everyday thing around here. And the people are dang sure getting fed up with it. And there's going to be something done.
Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Henryetta.
There appears to be a mild but vocal power struggle in Bethany, and the residents of the city are somewhat confused about which side to believe. Simply put, it's old politics versus the new. The controversy started brewing at the Bethany City Hall when several councilmen called a special meeting last night. Well, the meeting was called off, but more than 100 people showed up to support City Manager Paul Rice. The group was under the impression that the special meeting was called to fire Rice after 18 years on the job. But Bethany Councilman Ron Meade says the official reason for the meeting was to discuss city business with the city manager. Meade says earlier that day it was decided the meeting wasn't needed after all. And he has his own theory as to why there was still a rally last night.
6 council people were aware of this meeting, and that was all. Well, the next day we get calls and people threatening us that we're going to fire Paul Rice. Well, that isn't what came out of this letter. That's what came out of city management. This is all that this letter said. We still had 150 people show up, and there was obviously candidates were involved because the 2 running for the 2 offices were there that day and give a little bit of information about themselves, and we just felt like that was a political move altogether.
You haven't seen Bethany City Manager Paul Rice yet. That's because Mr. Rice said he didn't want to comment on camera about the rally or the actions of the city council. As for if another special meeting will be called or not, Councilman Meade says he's not sure. He says as long as the city business is operating properly, that's the council's main concern. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Bethany.